There are moments in life when the unseen world tries to speak, not once, not twice, but again and again until it can no longer be ignored. I stand before you not as someone who always listened, but as someone who once dismissed those warnings and paid a price that changed everything. As a former Satanist, I lived in darkness, convinced I was in control, until 3 repeated dreams began to break through my certainty like cracks in a wall I thought was unshakable. Those dreams were not random, not imagination, but urgent messages I chose to silence. Tonight I will reveal what happens when you ignore such warnings, and why what you dismiss today could become the turning point you cannot escape tomorrow. There was a time when I believed that dreams were nothing more than scattered thoughts, random images with no meaning or direction. I told myself they were simply the mind processing the day, nothing more, nothing worth paying attention to. But then something began to change, something I could not easily explain or ignore. The same dream started coming back, not once, not twice, but again and again with striking clarity. It carried the same message, the same feeling, the same sense of urgency that refused to fade. Deep down, I knew this was different, yet I kept pushing it aside. I convinced myself it was nothing, even as it continued to return with greater intensity. You see, when something repeats itself with such precision, it is not by accident or coincidence. There is a pattern, a purpose, a signal trying to reach you beyond logic and beyond comfort. Many of us choose to dismiss what we do not understand because it challenges our sense of control. I did the same, choosing comfort over truth, choosing ignorance over awareness. But repetition has a way of breaking through denial, knocking louder each time until it demands to be heard. It is like a voice that refuses to be silenced, no matter how hard you try to ignore it, and the more I resisted, the stronger that voice became within me. Those repeated dreams were not empty or meaningless. They were carrying a warning that I was too blind to accept. Each time I woke up, there was a feeling I could not shake, a weight that stayed with me throughout the day. It was as if something was trying to protect me, trying to redirect me before I went too far down a dangerous path. But instead of listening, I kept moving forward as if nothing was happening. I told myself I had time, that I could deal with it later, that it was not important. That was the mistake that cost me more than I could have ever imagined. What I failed to realize is that warnings do not come repeatedly without reason. When something tries to reach you again and again, it is because the message is urgent and necessary. It is not there to scare you. It is there to wake you up before the consequences arrive. Ignoring it does not make it disappear. It only delays the moment when reality catches up with you. I learned that the hard way, through experiences that shook me to my core and forced me to confront what I had avoided. Those dreams were not the problem. They were the solution I refused to accept. So when you experience something that keeps returning with the same message, do not brush it aside. Do not silence it just because it makes you uncomfortable or challenges your current path. Pay attention, reflect, and allow yourself to consider that it may carry meaning beyond what you can immediately understand. Sometimes the greatest protection comes in forms we are not prepared to recognize. Sometimes the answers we need come quietly, repeating themselves until we finally listen. And sometimes what you ignore today becomes the very thing you wish you had paid attention to tomorrow. Listen before the warning becomes a consequence you cannot escape. There comes a dangerous moment in life when you begin to believe that ignoring a warning will somehow make it lose its power. I lived in that illusion, convincing myself that what I refused to face would simply fade away with time. Each time the dreams came, I pushed them aside and buried the discomfort they brought. I told myself I was strong enough, in control enough, untouchable enough to move forward without consequence. But the truth is, ignoring a warning does not weaken it. It strengthens what it is trying to prevent. Every moment of denial adds weight to what is waiting ahead. And without realizing it, I was walking deeper into something I could not control. At first, the consequences were subtle, almost easy to dismiss or explain away. There was a growing sense of confusion, a feeling that something was not right even when everything seemed normal on the surface. My thoughts became clouded, my decisions less clear, and my sense of direction began to slip. Still, I chose to ignore it, believing it was just a phase that would pass. But ignoring a warning is like closing your eyes while walking toward danger. It does not stop what is ahead. It only guarantees that when you finally see it, it will be too late to turn back. That is the path I was on, and I did not even realize how far I had gone. As time passed, what began as small disturbances turned into overwhelming darkness. Fear started to replace confidence, and peace became something I could no longer find. I felt trapped in a cycle that I could not break, surrounded by the very consequences I once denied. The warnings I ignored were now realities I had to face, and they were far more intense than I had imagined. This is what happens when you refuse to listen, when you choose comfort over truth again and again. The cost grows, the impact deepens, and the way out becomes harder to find. I learned that every ignored warning carries a price, and that price does not stay small. What makes it even more powerful is that the consequences do not always come suddenly. They build quietly, layer by layer, until they reach a point where they can no longer be hidden. You may feel in control at first, thinking nothing has changed, thinking you have escaped any real impact. But beneath the surface, something is shifting. Something is growing stronger with every moment of neglect. I experienced that shift, and by the time I recognized it, I was already overwhelmed. The truth is, consequences are patient, but they are also inevitable when warnings are ignored. They wait until the moment you are least prepared to face them. If there is one thing I want you to understand, it is this: ignoring a warning is never a solution. It is a delay that leads to a greater struggle, a greater challenge, a greater pain than necessary. You have the power to choose differently, to pay attention, to stop and reflect before it is too late. Do not wait for the consequences to force you into awareness, because by then the path becomes much harder. Learn from what I went through and do not repeat the same mistake. Listen when something is trying to reach you, no matter how uncomfortable it may feel. Do not ignore what is trying to save you. There comes a defining moment in life when you finally decide to stop running and start listening. For me, that moment did not come easily. It came after confusion, fear, and the weight of consequences I could no longer ignore. The same dreams that I once dismissed began to feel different, not as threats, but as guidance trying to reach me. I realized that what I had been pushing away might actually be the very thing meant to protect me. That shift in perspective changed everything inside me. Instead of resisting, I began to pay attention and reflect on what I was being shown. And in that moment of openness, a new path quietly began to reveal itself. Listening does not mean everything becomes clear instantly, but it opens the door to understanding. When I chose to take those dreams seriously, I started to see patterns in my life that I had ignored before. I began to recognize the direction I was heading and the danger that came with it. Awareness replaced denial, and with awareness came the power to choose differently. It was not easy, because listening required me to confront truths I had avoided for a long time. But those truths were not there to destroy me. They were there to guide me towards something better. The more I listened, the more I realized that I was being given a chance to change. Heeding a warning is not a sign of weakness, it is an act of courage. It takes strength to admit that something is not right and to take steps to correct it. I had to let go of pride, let go of control, and accept that I needed to change my direction. That decision marked the beginning of a transformation I never thought was possible. The darkness that once surrounded me began to lose its grip, and a sense of clarity started to take its place. It was not an instant change, but it was real, and it was powerful. Every step I took in the direction of listening brought me closer to a life I could not see before. What I discovered is that warnings are often disguised as discomfort because they are meant to wake you up. They challenge you, push you, and force you to look beyond what feels safe and familiar. But within that discomfort is an opportunity to grow and to step into something greater. When you choose to listen, you are not just avoiding consequences, you are stepping into purpose. You are allowing yourself to be guided away from harm and toward a future that holds more peace and clarity. That is the power of paying attention, the power of choosing to respond instead of ignore. So if something keeps calling out to you, do not silence it or turn away from it. Take a moment to pause, to reflect, and to truly listen to what it might be trying to show you. That one decision could change the entire course of your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. What feels like fear today may actually be protection guiding you toward a better path. Trust that there is meaning in what you are experiencing and have the courage to follow it, because sometimes the answer you are searching for has been reaching out to you all along. Listen now and change your path before it is too late. In the end, this is not just my story. It is a warning and an invitation for every one of you. There are moments in life when something tries to reach you, to guide you, to protect you, but it will not force you to listen. The choice will always be yours. You can ignore it and face the consequences, or you can pause, reflect, and allow it to change your direction. I stand here as proof that ignoring those warnings leads to darkness, but listening can lead you back to clarity and purpose. Do not wait until everything falls apart before you decide to pay attention. What you choose today will shape what you face tomorrow.